Do you trust the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries in the House or Chuck Schumer in the Senate?
I don't trust right now the nature of a party that is more interested in its donors than it is in its voters. And that's been the challenge all along. I think back in the 70s and 80s, the Democratic Party, and definitely in the 90s, the Democratic Party made a deal with the devil. They said, well, if Republicans are going to get funded by corporations, maybe we could play that game too. And so you've got two parties that are now funded by the same corporations that now have a really, really different challenge. Because here's the thing about Republicans being funded by corporations when your whole goal is to strip down government and privatize everything makes a lot of sense. But if your stated goal is we want government to provide high quality services for people, but you're being paid by the very same people who want to see it all privatized, you can see the tension there. And so Democrats are caught in this really problematic bind. On the one hand, they're talking to their voters and saying, yes, we want to improve your health care. And then they're talking to the donors, who are the people who benefit from the fact that government does not provide health care, and saying, yeah, we got you. And so we've seen that hit a fever pitch at this point, because you've got Democrats who say the watered down thing, but they say it because they've been coached by a consultant to say it with enthusiasm. So you're out there and they say, well, we want to give you healthcare. And folks are like, okay, how? And they'll say affordable healthcare. Like, yes, I get it. That's the talking point, but how? And then they'll say, well, affordable healthcare. And you're like, you have no actual solution, because your solution is more focused on making sure that your donor is happy than it is on we being happy. And so I think any leadership that is bought into that system is frankly doomed to fail in a moment where I think we've seen the end outcome of the consequence of that, which is Donald Trump was able to exploit all of the pain that's being caused by the fact that our society is becoming harder and harder to live in. He was able to exploit that into power, and he is now using that power to corrupt our system entirely.
I guess the question I would ask around this, then, given the answer, is how do you really reform that? I mean, partly you have this gerontocracy where literally Democrats are dying in Congress. My congressman, I only have one. I live in Washington, D.C. She's 88 and has been largely absent during this Trump takeover. More to the point, I was talking with one of your assistants earlier that you had this news coming out of the New York Times today that Eric Adams might bow out of the race in New York just to take a job in the Trump administration. I mean, these are powerful interests that are entrenched. It seems like there's a groundswell of voter interest and more of the kind of message you're trying to get across. But then it hits the rubber meets the road here a little bit, where sure, that's true, but without an insane overhaul, I don't know how far we can actually get. How much turnover, how much of I don't know what the word would be, revolution, whatever it is necessary to make the Democrats actually effective at the kind of vision you're articulating? You can win your Senate race, but that is hardly enough.
Yeah, I think that this is a moment where, you know, it's clear that too often people care more about their luxury suite in the Titanic than they care about saving the Titanic. And I think all of us who recognize that the Democratic Party is a vehicle to express our interests in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, that we have a responsibility to do what we can to show up for that vision and to fight like hell to make it reality. There's no doubt that, power does not concede without a fight. So we got to fight on our hands. And look, people play games. I know that. But I think that if you are able and willing to keep pressing forward, you can build something that starts to build a groundswell. That's the beautiful thing about democratic politics, or democracy generally, is that the only way around it is through it. And so we have to provide an alternative rather than preemptively negotiating with what we think might happen in the future. We have to build an alternative that is uncompromising on the ideals of what our government was intended to be from the jump, which is a government that's answerable to its people, not the corporations, not the special interests, but the people, and push forward. Some folks who are amazing candidates might lose their elections. Some folks might win. And it's incumbent on them then, rather than lifting up the ladder, to reach down and keep building that movement and bringing people up with them. And that's kind of what I intend to do. I'll be honest with you. I've thought a lot about like the experience of being a U.S. senator. And I just don't understand what's so awesome about it. I guess there's a gym, but like you got to work out with Chuck Grassley. Like, I don't know that I want to do that. But all that is to say, like, it's not about the job, it's about the work. And the work is not just about what you can do from a legislative standpoint in terms of sponsoring and voting on bills. It's also about the kind of movement that you can build, the kind of conversation that you can have with the American public about who we are and who we want to be. And those two questions, Luke, I think are the core questions of our politics. Who are we and who do we want to be? And we're constantly answering that question. And if we don't like the answer that people like Donald Trump are giving us, then we really, really need to rethink the answer that Democrats are giving folks. And I've known my answer for a long time. I grew up in a house where my dad was an Egyptian immigrant. My stepmom, Jackie's a daughter of the American Revolution. I've watched people from different backgrounds come together and build something greater than the sum of its parts that is only possible in America. And so I got a sense of like who we are. Now the question is, who do we want to be? Right? Sometimes our demons attack our greater angels, but I happen to think that the only way to lift up those angels is to give them a platform. So I think you've just got to keep fighting for the thing that you believe in and keep that hope, and folks will join you.
What should the U.S. government's policy be towards Israel, and to what extent can the Democratic Party win repudiation of the ongoing genocide?
Yeah, well, thank you for using the word. Words have meanings. I'm trained as a scientist, as we talked about, and I was taught to use the word that means the thing. I don't believe in euphemisms when you're talking about innocent people's lives, 18,500 kids and counting. I do not believe that any of us want to be in the business of sending blank checks to foreign militaries. That means Israel, that means Egypt, that means Jordan, that means Pakistan, that means Saudi Arabia. And my belief in that, that hasn't changed. But particularly when you think that the opportunity cost of the blank checks that we're sending to a foreign military whose leadership has declared genocidal intent, that is now dropping bombs on children, destroying homes and hospitals and schools, killing journalists. When you think about the opportunity cost of what we could be doing with that money here at home, we could be feeding starving children here at home. We could be providing healthcare for sick kids here at home. We could be building infrastructure for all of us here at home. We could be building schools for our kids here at home. It's crazy to me that we continue to have a back and forth conversation as if it makes any sense to do anything but to stop funding a genocide.
If I may, do you believe that the Democrats are doomed if they don't adopt a policy more in conjunction with yours?
I'll say this.
Electorally, I mean.
Yeah, look, I'll say this. It's not just that there are many people that would be Democratic voters who don't want their tax dollars being spent on a genocide directly. It's that the inability of the party to clearly articulate a moral catastrophe being funded by our tax dollars says a lot about whether or not they're able to name any of the problems that we face, let alone take them on. So it's hard to believe somebody when they say, I'm going to fight like hell against the pharmaceutical CEOs and the insurance CEOs and against Donald Trump's corruption of our democracy. And they can't even take on the enforced language of their own party being enforced by MAGA billionaires spending money in our elections. So I don't know what else at some point, if you can't just name the obvious thing in front of you, like kids are being killed, can we just start there? So this has become a bit of a moral Rorschach test. And I wonder where the party goes from here if it can't just identify a very clear moral set of red lines. And I think it shakes to the core people's trust and belief in the party writ large. So, doomed or not, or doomed to be wayward in the seas, or to hit the shoal and collapse. I don't know, but I'm fighting for a future of the party where we can be very, very clear on our values. And I'll just say this, Luke. I remember my second presidential election was for a guy named Barack Hussein Obama. And I remember being so excited to vote for him because it was the first time I got to vote for somebody who remotely, looked like me. But also because he was willing to stand up against a dumb war. And I don't know what happened in the last 17 years where we stopped being the party of peace. But I just think we need to find that again. And, I think that there is a responsibility for us to get right on those values. And there's a clear way forward. You just got to stop being afraid of special interest money.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Please consider giving this a thumbs up as well as liking it. And if you want more of my politics coverage, go to the link in the description box for my Substack. Yes, go to my Substack. We might put a QR code on the screen here as well. Tons of exclusives, interviews, chat functionality with a whole different community over there. Tons of fun stuff. Give it a look.